People who are in violent opposition to one another on issues are running different programs but from the same operating system of duality. The kingdom of heaven is in the midst of you. In a series of books on the Yaqui way of knowledge, Carlos Castaneda attributed an assertion to Don Juan, his mentor, that the destruction of the Yaqui way of life in the face of manifest destiny did much to create sorcerers. I don't have the patience to go find the very passage, but it's like once the ability of the people to physically dominate their surroundings disappeared, there was an inward turn on their part that made for like a revolution of sorcerers. I personally think Carlos Castaneda invented Don Juan as a device to communicate the discoveries that he made, either experientially or through study. But maybe this notion occurred to him through the history of the ghost dance on the part of the Plains tribes, an idea that ritual could be used to bring back the old ways and vanquish the catastrophic status quo. This could happen to any group of people, that their avenues for outward expression are cut off, turning them inward to discover what appears in silence and stillness, that suffering brings this discovery, be it on an individual or through an entire people. The ability to enjoy anything is precluded by the inability to enjoy nothing. Who was it who said that man's biggest problem is that he can't sit in a room by himself? It was Blaise Pascal, and it really rings true. A nobody can be happy, but a somebody requires conditions to be happy. And conditions are always changing. And so outwardly dependent happiness is fleeting. When I say no one can be happy, I mean happiness is ambient in the absence of the idea of being someone. Because for someone, things must be a certain way. This is not pointing to simple dissociation. When there's awareness without the belief in being anything appearing in that awareness, there's an absence of fear. And that absence reveals something that can't be unremembered. That is your natural state, which is perceived as love. When a listener asked Nisargadatta Maharaj what he was, he said, nothing that is conceivable or perceivable. Beings like this are not experiencing reality in the same way as most, but they realize that they are neither special nor crazy. They realize that anyone could discover this state of being, as it does not require the addition of anything, only the removal of ignorance. They themselves have had this experience of seeing the veil removed. Papaji, one of Ramana Maharshi's disciples, said, "It's so simple." And it is, but only when the palpable connection between the state and position of the energy body and the condition of being in delusion is discovered. Before that, there's the perception of being a thinker, the perception of being a doer, the perception of being one to judge things and people. There's strong reaction to physical threat and intellectual contradiction. There's no peace in being identified with an object and its associated ideas relating to it. That object exists in a world of things that would destroy or consume it if given the opportunity, and for that there's fear. Those ideas exist in a world of countervailing ideas. In this operating system of insular self, the ideal is to control everything and everyone that can be controlled. And the ability to do those things depends on power. Meanwhile, there's a need also to avoid being vulnerable to the powers of others. We're becoming less and less willing to be vulnerable as things move faster and are more chaotic. But in this ignorance of body identification, both the protagonist and antagonist, they want control, but they also want liberty. The unconscious acts around you reveal themselves in their need to coerce you in some way. It's done to address fear. All this technology that's being developed is not to protect you. It's to protect its controllers. People can be competent on many levels that are visible, and yet in the invisible dimension, they can be quite arrested. So because people have high status and competence in our world, it doesn't mean that they are spiritually developed. There's an inverse relationship between spiritual development and the need to control everything. Technology gives the illusion of being able to control more and more things. And so the most powerful and most unconscious people are grabbing hardest at that ring to control it, to control everything. They're operating from fear. But to lose that fear and to gain the peace that surpasses all understanding is more than just the cognizing of, I am not the body. It's not an additive process, and you cannot buy it, and it will not come to you through the accumulation of knowledge any more than knowing the rules and strategies of a sport will make you an athlete capable of playing it well. You have to do it, so to speak, but it's less of an accomplishment by doing and more of an accomplishment by allowing. So much of what we don't allow within ourselves holds us in this frame of belief that makes our state of being the product of our reactions to a chaotic world. In this paradigm of identification with form, the bombardment of our senses with information at an accelerated rate via technology is making us glitch. So long as there's identification with this I thought to relate to all these things, there'll be no peace. It starts with noticing, which is mindfulness, noticing that there's suffering. And then it is noticing that there's a source of suffering. On the surface, that source is unwanted ideas, thoughts, circumstances, and our reaction to those things causes the pain we feel. The emotional pain of suffering. It's not enough in the face of that suffering to simply say, I am not that to which these things relate, even though that's true. The realization of that is what is needed for the natural state to appear. What's needed is the creation of the inner conditions wherein the non-self nature of what appears in awareness will be exposed experientially. Eckhart Tolle referred to this thing called the pain body, and it's an excellent way to conceptualize that from which pathological behavior and suffering arises. It's like a reservoir, for lack of a better way to put it, a reservoir of negative energy, like a subtle version of that evil pink goo that the Ghostbusters rubbed on the Statue of Liberty in Ghostbusters 2. That stuff would be your energy body, and it reacts to belief. It gets infused. In body identification, there's an emotional reaction to physical pain that's inflicted by another relational agent, another person. This kind of emotional pain is absent when the physical pain is incidental, like getting struck by an object that the fates have placed on a collision course with your body. We don't take it personally. But when a person hurts us, it hurts us in two ways. It creates emotional trauma in addition to the physical pain. And that trauma gets absorbed by the energy body. And when there's enough of it, the energy body becomes the pain body. And that subtle form radiates a pain that calls for relief. There are words of grievance that arise from that pain body, thoughts, unwanted thoughts. And those words loop back to pluck the strings of emotion to create suffering. Escape from that pain in the voice, in the head, is sought through that which brings attention into the present. It could be extreme activities of one type or another, or the pursuit of security to make everything safe in the hope of maintaining alignment. That pain body doesn't just dissolve and go away because it's been seen for the imposter that it is. It is more that the pain body eventually brings enough tension to itself that it gets exposed and dealt with. It's the thoughts that arise from it that are first attributed to suffering. They are noticed. The rarity of spiritual awakening has much to do with the predominant method of dealing with unwanted thoughts. It's not lost on the public that unwanted thoughts are painful, but they are dealt with too much at a surface level, at a trying to make them right level to do anything but cause the proliferation of more thoughts. Meaning that if you try to countervail unwanted thoughts with other thoughts of something better or thoughts of a way to change the circumstance, it just gives more energy to the whole thought complex. The power of thought to cause pain is what must be dealt with, and that the source of that is ignorance. In trying to bend circumstances to the ideal, you just create a whole tapestry of schemes, all predicated on the mind's ideal. It's a fabric of the veil that hides the peace that is your natural state. So the first noticing is that a thought has appeared that causes pain. To create the conditions wherein this pain body can be unraveled, there must be a departure from relational thinking. There is noticing, and then there's feeling. And feeling is not relational. Feeling, in the absence of thought, can't connect to anything. The hooks of identity aren't there, and thus it can be isolated and concentrated on and felt, but passively, in a way that allows it to be felt fully, without resistance or reaction. And then it can be let go of. It can be surrendered back to its source. This ongoing noticing of what's unwanted, of feeling it and not, in a non-relational way, and then letting go of it, a surrendering it back to its source, will create a change in your inner weather. And from that, this pain body begins to deflate like a balloon. The skin of that balloon is the identity, the persona, the impressions and consciousness born of experience that call themselves you. As that pain body balloon begins to shrivel, the perception of distance between itself and what's aware of it becomes more apparent. And then the statements and ideas that relate to the physical and conceptual self begin to have less weight. There's not a sense that phenomenon relates to what's aware of it. This lack of unconscious belief allows for presence, and that is meditation. That's an active, ongoing practice that changes the inner conditions and leads to this revelation, this discovery. It's not just an accumulation of knowledge. In the movie The Ninth Gate, Johnny Depp's character, Corso, goes through a series of trials that relate to these plates within this book that was supposedly written in conjunction with Lucifer. And there's 3 volumes, and the real plates are spread between the 3. And in each of the real plates, there's depicted a situation that Johnny Depp actually encounters. Now, in the shadows is a benefactor funding Johnny's mission to reveal the real text plates. And in the end, this benefactor is seeking the, I guess, metaphysical, supernatural treasure that's at the end of this hunt. And he deems himself as the only one worthy to acquire this treasure because he's gone through the trials. But in actuality, it's Johnny Depp who went through the trials. He's the one actually going through the particulars of what's in the depictions. And in the end, it's he who's rewarded. And the message here is that it's more than just a knowing. There is an actual process to observe. And without that process, you're like somebody who just knows the rules to a sport but hasn't developed the capabilities through discipline. That's all for now.